There are women who walk unnoticed among us, and yet they carry a force so rare that Carl Jung himself would call it a living mystery. A force that cannot be explained by logic alone because it belongs not to the surface of the mind, but to the depths of the unconscious. Jung once said that the psyche is not only personal, but also collective, a vast sea of symbols, dreams, and energies that shape the fate of humanity. And in some women, this sea awakens with unusual intensity. They bear within themselves invisible marks of a spiritual intelligence that few can recognize, and fewer still can understand. These women are not defined by appearances nor by social roles, but by something older, deeper, almost archetypal. Their eyes pierce through masks. Their silence speaks louder than words. Their presence alone can ignite transformation in those around them. But how do we recognize them? What are the hidden signs that reveal the presence of such a rare power? And why did Jung insist that the feminine dimension of the psyche carries keys to humanity's spiritual evolution? In this journey, we will uncover 7 invisible signs of women with rare spiritual power through the secret psychology of Carl Jung. Each sign is a door into the soul, an invitation to explore the mysteries that live within all of us. Stay until the end, because what you will discover here might not only change the way you see others, but also the way you understand yourself. Before we begin, if you are fascinated by Jung's psychology, archetypes, and the hidden powers of the unconscious, subscribe to this channel. This is where we journey together through the mysteries of the soul. Now, let us begin with the first hidden sign, the gaze that sees beyond masks. Throughout history, there have always been women whose gaze unsettled those who dared to meet their eyes. Not because of hostility nor seduction, but because their eyes seem to penetrate a layer of reality that most people spend their entire lives trying to conceal. Carl Jung understood this phenomenon as an encounter with the unconscious, that hidden realm where truth cannot be disguised. For women of rare spiritual power, the gaze is not simply a biological act of vision. It is an instrument of soul. When they look at someone, they see not only the persona, the social mask carefully built for survival, but also the subtle cracks in that mask. They perceive the unspoken fears, the unhealed wounds, and the forgotten dreams buried within the other. This capacity does not arise from effort, but from an innate sensitivity to symbolic and emotional undercurrents. Jung would describe this as the power of the anima and the archetypal feminine, forces that carry a natural intimacy with the hidden life of the psyche. Such women are able to detect dissonance between what is said and what is truly felt. A smile on the lips cannot conceal the sorrow behind the eyes, nor can confidence in words erase the trembling energy beneath them. Their perception is immediate, intuitive, and at times unsettling, even to themselves. This gaze is not always welcomed. Some people feel exposed, as if standing naked before a mirror that reflects not the body but the soul. Others, however, feel profoundly seen, recognized for the first time without judgment. That is the paradox of such power. It both disturbs and heals. The woman who carries it becomes, in Jungian terms, a mirror of the shadow. She awakens in others what they would rather leave unexamined. Yet this gift is also a burden. To constantly perceive the hidden currents of human beings can be exhausting, even isolating. Many of these women withdraw into solitude, not because they despise others, but because they sense too much. Their gaze becomes both a bridge and a boundary, a sacred threshold where truth is revealed. To encounter such a gaze is to be invited into depth, and for those who dare to accept, transformation becomes possible. It is not the woman herself who transforms them, but the light of truth reflected in her vision. Jung would call this individuation, the slow process of becoming whole by integrating the fragments of the self. If you feel this first hidden sign resonates, pause for a moment. Reflect. Have you ever met someone whose eyes seemed to know you before you spoke a single word? Share your story in the comments. Your experience may help others recognize this rare power too. Intuition that borders on prophecy. There are moments in life when logic fails, when reason stumbles, and yet a quiet inner voice speaks with startling clarity. For women of rare spiritual power, this voice is not occasional, it is a constant companion, an inner compass that guides them through uncertainty. Carl Jung recognized this phenomenon as the function of intuition, one of the four fundamental ways in which the psyche perceives reality. Unlike sensing, which relies on concrete facts, or thinking, which demands rational analysis, intuition moves in the invisible. It is the capacity to grasp patterns, possibilities, and outcomes before they fully unfold. In Jung's words, intuition perceives the seed of the future in the present. For these women, such perception often feels prophetic. They sense when events are about to shift, when relationships are nearing a turning point, or when danger quietly approaches. But this gift is not about fortune-telling or magical prediction. It is the deep, unconscious reading of symbols, atmospheres, and subtle cues that others overlook. A sudden dream, an image, or even a fleeting feeling can reveal an entire horizon of meaning. These women often describe it as knowing without knowing how they know. Jung would say their unconscious is more porous, more attuned to the collective patterns that shape human destiny. This intuitive power can be disconcerting for those around them. Friends may dismiss it as coincidence until events prove otherwise. Family may resist it, fearing what it reveals about hidden truths. And yet, time and again, their premonitions manifest with uncanny accuracy. Intuition of this magnitude also carries a heavy weight. To foresee outcomes that others deny is not always a blessing. Imagine feeling the tension in a relationship long before it breaks, or sensing the illness before the diagnosis arrives. These women often wrestle with the responsibility of what they perceive. Should they speak? Should they remain silent? Jung emphasized that intuition must be balanced with discernment, for raw perception without grounding can overwhelm the soul. Still, when embraced consciously, this prophetic intuition becomes a guiding light not only for themselves, but for those around them. It helps them navigate crises with calm, trust their path when others doubt, and inspire faith in people who have lost direction. In Jungian terms, their intuition embodies the archetype of the seer, one who bridges the visible and the invisible, carrying messages from the unconscious into the daylight of awareness. If you are fascinated by these hidden dimensions of Jungian psychology, remember to subscribe and join this community. Together, we explore the mysteries that cannot be explained by logic alone, but can be deeply felt within the soul, transforming pain into wisdom. Every life carries suffering, but not every soul knows how to transmute it. Many are crushed under the weight of grief, betrayal, or failure. Yet for certain women, those with rare spiritual power, pain does not remain as a wound, it becomes a seed. Through an alchemy that Jung himself associated with individuation, they transform agony into wisdom, scars into sacred knowledge. This transformation is never immediate. It begins in darkness, in the raw and often unbearable experience of loss or despair. While others may numb themselves, these women descend courageously into the depths of their suffering. They do not flee from shadow, they face it. Jung believed that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. These women embody that principle. They allow sorrow to carve them open, trusting that in the emptiness, something greater may emerge. In this descent, their psyche touches the archetype of the wounded healer. Just as Chiron in Greek mythology carried an incurable wound, yet became a guide for others, these women discover that their own pain awakens a profound capacity to heal. They do not simply overcome suffering, they metabolize it into empathy, into strength, into wisdom that can illuminate the path for others. The process is not without cost. There are nights of silence where hope seems impossible, seasons of loneliness where even faith is tested. But slowly, the fragments of the broken self are reassembled into a deeper wholeness. The woman who emerges from this trial is not the same as before. Her eyes carry depth, her words carry weight, and her very presence becomes a reminder that wounds are not the end of life, but the beginning of transformation. Jung would say she has confronted the shadow and integrated it, allowing her to walk in authenticity rather than illusion. The pain becomes a compass, pointing her toward meaning. The wound becomes a doorway, opening her to the collective human experience. And in this process, she becomes a vessel of wisdom, not only for herself, but for all who encounter her. Those who stand near her feel this alchemy, even without words. They sense resilience, a quiet power that inspires courage in their own struggles. What once threatened to destroy her has instead forged her spirit into something unbreakable. Have you ever felt pain transform you into someone wiser, more compassionate, or stronger? Share your reflections in the comments. Your story may resonate with others walking the same path. Connection to the collective unconscious. Carl Jung believed that beneath our individual minds lies a vast ocean of shared symbols, myths, and ancestral memories. He called it the collective unconscious, a psychic reservoir where humanity's timeless experiences are stored in the form of archetypes. For most people, this realm remains distant, appearing only in dreams or fleeting intuitions. But for women of rare spiritual power, this dimension is alive, immediate, and almost tangible. Such women often describe having dreams that feel larger than their personal lives, dreams that seem to carry messages not only for themselves, but for the world. They sense patterns in events, synchronicities that defy coincidence, and connections between their inner life and the broader movements of history or culture. Jung argued that these experiences are not illusions. They are encounters with the archetypal layers of the psyche, the same forces that shaped myths, religions, and sacred stories across civilizations. For these women, symbols are not abstract. A raven in a dream is not simply a bird, but a messenger of transformation. Water is not merely liquid, but the image of the unconscious itself. The moon is not only a celestial body, but a mirror of the feminine cycles of renewal and decay. Their perception is mythopoetic. They live in a world where everything speaks, everything carries meaning. This connection grants them both power and responsibility. They are natural interpreters of symbols, capable of guiding others to understand the messages hidden within their dreams, their crises, and even their illnesses. Jung believed that the soul speaks in images, and these women carry the gift of listening to that language. They remind others that human life is not random, but woven into a tapestry of archetypal narratives that echo across time. Yet this sensitivity can also be overwhelming. To feel the weight of collective suffering, wars, ecological destruction, or cultural collapse is to carry a burden larger than oneself. Some women struggle with this intensity, unsure how to ground it in daily life. Jung warned that immersion in the collective unconscious can drown the individual unless balanced with conscious awareness. Still, when integrated, this gift becomes a source of profound wisdom. Such women become mediators between the visible and invisible, between the personal and the universal. They embody the archetype of the oracle, voices through which the unconscious speaks, reminding humanity of its forgotten roots. If you are intrigued by Jung's vision of the collective unconscious, subscribe and stay close to this channel. Here, Every week, we explore the symbols and archetypes that shape your inner life. The silence that reveals depth. In a world addicted to noise, constant words, and endless distractions, silence often feels like an absence. Yet for women of rare spiritual power, silence is not emptiness. It is presence. Their quietness does not arise from shyness or fear, but from depth. Jung understood that the unconscious reveals itself not in chatter, but in stillness, in the spaces where the soul can breathe. When such a woman enters a room, she does not need to dominate the space with her voice. Her silence carries a weight that speaks louder than arguments or explanations. People sense something different, a calm intensity, a field of energy that both unsettles and attracts. In her stillness, others begin to hear themselves more clearly. This is because her silence acts like a mirror, reflecting what lies hidden in the hearts of those around her. Jung would describe this as an archetypal quality, connected to the wise woman, the priestess, or even the mother archetype. These figures embody the paradox that silence itself can be communicative. For these women, silence becomes a form of sacred language. It expresses empathy without words, wisdom without speeches, truth without debate. This quality is not always understood. In a society that equates talking with authority, the quiet woman is often underestimated. Yet beneath that misperception lies a hidden power. Her silence protects her energy, filters out the noise of superficiality, and allows her to remain connected to her inner source. Jung often emphasized that true power lies in the capacity to hold tension, and silence is the container where that tension can transform into insight. For those who encounter her, the experience can be profound. A single moment of her presence may awaken realizations that hours of conversation could not achieve. People leave her company feeling strangely lighter, as if they have touched something eternal. This is not because she imposes wisdom, but because her silence creates the space where wisdom can arise in others. To embody silence in this way is not an escape from the world, but a deeper engagement with it. Such women remind us that the greatest truths are often wordless, that the soul speaks in subtle currents, and that real transformation begins not in noise, but in stillness. Pause for a moment. When was the last time you felt the power of silence? Your own or that of another? Share your reflection in the comments. Your story may inspire someone who is learning to trust the quiet within, the call toward the shadow. Most people spend their lives avoiding the darker corners of their own psyche. They cling to comfort, repress uncomfortable emotions, and hide from the truths that threaten their self-image. But women of rare spiritual power are drawn, almost irresistibly, toward the places others fear. This is what Jung called the confrontation with the shadow, the meeting with the hidden, repressed, and often frightening aspects of the self. For these women, the shadow is not a monster to be destroyed, but a teacher to be faced. They recognize that the very qualities we reject, anger, envy, fear, shame, contain untapped energy and potential for growth. To deny the shadow is to remain fragmented. To embrace it is to move toward wholeness. Jung insisted that the gold is in the dark, and these women live by that truth. Their courage to enter the shadow often begins with personal suffering. A crisis, betrayal, or inner conflict pushes them into the depths. Where others would numb themselves or escape, they remain. They descend into nightmares, explore their own contradictions, and allow the darkness to reveal its hidden lessons. This descent is not comfortable, but it is transformative. Through it, they discover authenticity, a self no longer defined by masks or illusions. This intimacy with the shadow gives them a rare presence. Others sense that they cannot be easily deceived because they have already confronted deception within themselves. They carry an honesty that is disarming, an energy that challenges others to look at their own hidden wounds. In this way, they act as initiators, inviting those around them to step into their own shadows with courage. Yet this gift is also a burden. Living with awareness of the shadow means carrying the constant tension between light and dark. These women often struggle with intensity, solitude, and the weight of truths others refuse to see. But their resilience comes from knowing that the shadow is not an enemy, but an ally. By making peace with it, they embody a wholeness that few attain. In Jungian terms, they embody the archetype of the dark feminine, not evil, but transformative, a force that strips away illusions and awakens the soul to its hidden power. They remind us that to deny the shadow is to deny half of life, and that true spiritual power requires embracing the night as well as the day. The power to awaken transformation in others. Among all the signs of women with rare spiritual power, perhaps the most mysterious is their ability to awaken something dormant in those around them. Carl Jung often described individuation, the journey toward wholeness, as a path few dare to walk alone. Yet some individuals act as catalysts, igniting in others the courage to begin this inner pilgrimage. Women of rare spiritual power embody this catalytic role. Their very presence stirs the soul. It is not that they seek to change others, nor that they impose their wisdom. The transformation arises naturally, almost unconsciously, as if their energy carries a frequency that resonates with hidden layers of the psyche. A single conversation, a glance, or even silent proximity to such a woman can awaken buried memories, stir forgotten dreams, or trigger an unexpected emotional release. Those who encounter her often leave altered, sensing that something invisible has shifted within them. Jung might have linked this to the archetype of the mediatrix, the one who bridges worlds. These women channel the forces of the unconscious into daily life, not by controlling them, but by embodying them. They become living mirrors of what others repress, inviting them to integrate what has long been ignored. For some, this awakening feels liberating. For others, it feels unsettling, even threatening, because it forces them to confront truths they have avoided. Such power is not glamorous, it carries responsibility. These women must learn boundaries, for their energy naturally draws projections. Others may idealize them, project fantasies of savior or mother, or even resist them with hostility. Jung warned that projection is inevitable, yet the spiritually powerful woman learns to hold these projections without being consumed by them. Her role is not to fulfill others' illusions, but to reflect them back, helping people reclaim their own inner authority. When lived consciously, this awakening power becomes a gift for the collective. It allows communities to heal, relationships to deepen, and individuals to step into their true potential. The woman who carries it does not claim ownership of transformation. She knows it comes from the archetypal forces moving through her. She is simply the vessel through which the unconscious calls others toward growth. This final sign reveals the essence of rare spiritual power, not domination, not control, but awakening. These women remind us that the greatest power is not to change others by force, but to create the conditions in which they can transform themselves. Have you ever met someone whose presence alone seemed to awaken something inside you? Share your story in the comments. Your experience may help others recognize the silent power of awakening, the secret power of the feminine soul. As this journey comes to an end, we return to Jung's timeless insight. The psyche is a mystery, and within it lives a force that transcends reason, culture, and even time itself. Women of rare spiritual power embody this mystery in ways that are both hidden and transformative. We have uncovered 7 invisible signs: the gaze that pierces through masks, the intuition that borders on prophecy, the gift of turning pain into wisdom, the connection to the collective unconscious, the silence that reveals depth, the courage to face the shadow, and finally, the power to awaken transformation in others. Each of these signs is more than a personal trait. Together, they reveal a sacred pattern, a portrait of the feminine archetype as Jung envisioned it, not weak, not secondary, but a force of deep intelligence and spiritual authority. Such women remind us that true power does not come from domination, but from presence, insight, and the courage to descend into the depths of the soul. This path is not easy. To carry such power is to walk between worlds, to face loneliness, projection, and the weight of truths most would rather deny. Yet it is also a path of meaning, of wisdom, of service to something larger than the self. If you have recognized yourself in these signs, or if you have known a woman who carries them, honor that presence. It is rare, it is demanding, and it is sacred. Jung believed that individuation, becoming whole, was not only a personal calling, but also humanity's greatest task. Women with this rare spiritual power are living symbols of that journey, guiding us toward a deeper and more authentic existence. So as we close, remember this: the signs are not outside of you. They are seeds within the human soul, waiting to awaken. Perhaps, through reflection, courage, and openness to the unconscious, you too may discover that these hidden powers live within your own depths. If this exploration resonated with you, subscribe and join this community. Share your reflections in the comments, and let us continue to explore together the mysteries that Jung unveiled, mysteries that still shape our lives today.